What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel and welcome to my weekly takeaways video. You'll notice that there is no graphic because I only have one takeaway from this past week, and it's just wow. It truly is just wow. I mean, we might have just seen the most chaotic week of the college football season, and I know October usually brings college football chaos and brings upsets, but what we just saw yesterday, that was unbelievable. That was amazing. That was as chaotic as you could have possibly gotten for a college football Saturday. Number 1, number 4, number 9, number 10, number 11, and number 22, as well as number 25 on Friday, all lost this past weekend. I mean, you cannot write a script better than what we just saw this past weekend. It was absolutely sensational. So I'm going to kind of be here in this video talking about just how wild and crazy this season has been so far, how this previous week was, and sort of what it means going forward for the rest of this college football season. Hey, if you like these kind of videos where it's just me and you guys, just me talking directly to you, I try to do some of these videos a lot, and we'll try to do a lot more here in just a couple weeks as my schedule is about to lighten up a whole lot more here as we dive on in further into the month of October. I just want to say thank you guys so much for supporting me in any way that you already do, whether that's here on YouTube, and if you want to continue to help support me here on YouTube, please I should say thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this video, but please, if you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. I talk a lot of college football here on the channel. You can also like, you can comment, and you can share, and anything else you do to interact with the channel helps us support it. But you can also go give me a follow on Twitter or X. It's at TailgateNate29. I post a lot of other things I do as a sports media student, some of the other field work I do. I'd be very appreciative if you were to go check me out there on that platform as well. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive on into what I'm talking about here in this video. Again, I know no fancy graphics or things like that, so just I'm going to try to make this video as short as humanly possible, but you go ahead and just look at some of the results that happened this past week. I'm just going to go ahead and list them off. How about Texas A&M absolutely putting the beat down on Missouri? I figured that Texas A&M was going to win that game. I predicted them to win. I did not think they were going to win the game 41-10. They limited Missouri's offense. Missouri's defense couldn't do anything. And even though the Aggies had a ton more penalties than what the Missouri Tigers had, there were some early calls that went against the Missouri Tigers, including calling back a Luther Burden touchdown catch that would have made the game, I believe, 10-7 at the time. And instead, Texas A&M just absolutely blew the doors off of this Missouri team. But that wasn't the only interesting thing that happened there in the SEC. No, Vanderbilt. Talk about the upset of the century. Vanderbilt? Are you kidding me? You beat the number one team in the country in the Alabama Crimson Tide after being 0-60 in top 5 matchups. And first off, I will tolerate absolutely no Vanderbilt slander. I will not have it because this was not a fluky performance. They controlled the clock. They were the better coached team. Diego Pavia played better than Jalen Milroe in that game. Vanderbilt was more physical. And, I mean, look, if Alabama would have escaped that game with a win, there would have been some massive questions on the side of the Crimson Tide. Now, I'm not saying that there already are. I mean, there's obviously a ton of questions about this Alabama team. You beat a top 5 team in Georgia this past week, just last week, and then you go on the road and lose to what arguably is the worst team in the SEC. I mean, that's going to cause a whole lot of questions. And then how about the Hogs, huh? They beat the Tennessee Volunteers, another team that looked like they were going to be a bona fide national championship contender. And, well, the past couple of weeks, I've seen their offense really slow down here, and the defense couldn't do enough against the Razorbacks team with a backup quarterback in. You saw Taylon Green go down there in that game. Hopefully he is okay and he's ready to go. But Malachi Singleton came in, only threw 3 passes, but did make a couple of big-time throws there. The running back room and Jaquindon Jackson really stepped up, but it was this Razorback defense doing pretty much every little thing that they needed to do. They limited Tennessee to only 332 yards. They didn't force a turnover for Tennessee, but they did control the clock. They were able to limit Nico Iamaleava in this offense just enough to let the Hogs go there and win that game. So kind of one of the more smaller takeaways that you could say is the SEC is wide open. I mean, Texas currently right now looks like one of the best 2 teams in the entire country. The other one is on the jersey hanging up behind me right here. And secondly, the SEC is wide open. I mean, Ole Miss bounced back this week. You still have LSU in there. I mentioned Texas A&M earlier. They look like a team that could absolutely get to the SEC championship game. I mentioned Georgia earlier. They beat Auburn this past week. It was, yes, a chaotic week throughout the entirety of college football, but especially in the SEC. I mean, my goodness, that was just pure chaos. Absolute pure chaos, but it didn't stop there. You heard me mention that number 10 and number 11 went down. Both of those teams were in the Big Ten Conference, and well, Michigan started to look a little bit better, but they weren't necessarily getting the quarterback play that they needed. They stepped in, and Jack Tuttle looked to be a little bit of a better passer than what Davis Warren and Alex Orji were, but I mean, it still wasn't great. 10 of 18, 98 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick. Davis Warren is still probably the best passing quarterback in that quarterback room, but he throws too many picks. Jack Tuttle did not have an inspiring quarterback performance either. Couldn't lead the comeback, or I should say, couldn't lead the Michigan Wolverines to come back and win that game against the Washington Huskies. Washington, a very talented team. You saw Kalel Mullings get limited. Donovan Edwards had himself a pretty good game, but this Michigan secondary was, again, the weak point here. They allowed 271 yards to Will Rogers, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception there as well. Will Rogers did step out for a couple plays, and Damon Williams, I believe a true freshman, stepped in for just a couple of moments there. But Jonah Coleman had himself a phenomenal game. How about the true freshman in Denzel Boston, who is continuing to be really good? Giles Jackson was a really good piece to this offense, and the Washington defense forced some turnovers. They forced 2 of them. They forced 2 of them there and just limited this Michigan offense, especially on 3rd down. Even though Michigan still technically controlled the clock here, it wasn't enough for the Wolverines there to be able to win that game. And Washington was definitely still a very physical team there in that game. I don't know if you could say they were the more physical team than Michigan, but I mean, 1 sack, 3 tackles for loss. You take a look at what the Michigan Wolverines were able to do. I mean, look, they had 4 sacks and 6 tackles for loss. So Michigan probably definitely won the battle at the line of scrimmage. But Washington, they hung in there. They fought, man. They played a really good game, and they pulled off the upset against Michigan at home. And then Minnesota pulling off the upset there against USC. And USC, after what they did against LSU, you could start to look and say, okay, yeah, I mean, this is a USC team that could be a true college football playoff contender, and now they're starting to look like what a lot of people thought they were going to look like at the beginning of the season. Miller Moss did not have himself his best game. He threw 2 picks. Woody Marks was still sensational on the ground, but they didn't get a lot of production from that wide receiver room, at least as much as they wanted to. They had 3 turnovers on the day. Minnesota, a good hard-nosed football team under PJ Fleck, even though they were outgained, even though the 3rd down defense wasn't that great, they just simply found a way to win that game. And that's kind of the way that you look at a lot of these games, right? I mean, Vandy is a little bit more explainable than some of the other things that happened this week, right? But Arkansas really don't have an explanation other than that's college football, right? They were able to limit Tennessee's offense enough, and their offense and defense did just enough to help them win that game. Washington, they were not the more physical team than the Michigan Wolverines. They didn't even control the clock in that game, but they forced turnovers. They forced key stops at crucial points. They were able to go and win that game. Same thing with what Minnesota did against USC. And then how about Miami and Cal? I mean, that Miami comeback was absolutely something out of a movie. 2nd straight week now where it looks like Miami is dead in the water. They're going to come up with their first loss of the college football season, and Cal was going to continue just the absolute chaotic week that we had seen so far. Nope, Cam Ward just would not let his team lose. Diego Pavia just would not let his team lose. And just some of the other really good performances that we saw out of this week in SMU. It's time to throw SMU into the ACC conversation. They went on the road and went toe-to-toe with the Louisville Cardinals. And even though that defense didn't necessarily play super well, Louisville's a team that's absolutely going to punch back. And SMU still came up with a couple really big defensive stops, forced a turnover there in that game. But the offense, that was the concern about SMU early on this season. Just didn't seem like it was clicking. In the loss to BYU, it just didn't seem like everything was working. That's their only loss right now, and BYU, according to the AP poll, is a top 15 team. They might even be a top 15 team in my poll that comes out tomorrow, by the way, because you would have no idea how hard it is to put together a top 25 poll right now. So that top 25 poll will be out tomorrow, and then we'll start getting into preview and predictions there on Tuesday. But I mean, just wow, you go and take a look at everything that happened this past week. Absolute and utter chaos. So, what does that mean moving forward? Well, I think I said it in that last video, the last weekly takeaway video that I made before I made this one. That made no sense. Basically, the last weekly takeaway video that I had after week 5, was it? Yeah. After week 5, I said, look, man, October normally brings chaos. This season just felt like, especially after we got a little bit of chaos in that weekend of September 28th, it just sort of felt like that this was going to be a college football season that was going to be as unpredictable as we've ever seen. 2007, anyone? Does that sort of ring any bells? It's starting to feel like this year, right? And if I were to be honest with all you fine people out there, I really would only say that there are two teams right now that I 100% trust to go make the college football playoff based out of everything we've seen. That's Texas, and that is the Ohio State Buckeyes. Those, according to me right now, and according to the way I believe and the way I see things here, those, as of right now, are the only two teams that I would put full trust and conversation in and to say, yeah, okay, some way, somehow, they are going to get into the college football playoff. Bama's got a lot of questions, even though they're still pretty likely to make the playoff. Georgia, same thing. Tennessee, same thing. Even Oregon and Penn State, they're still sitting at undefeated right now. They have not lost a game. And of course, Oregon is going to play Ohio State this week. We're going to find out a lot about both the Bucks and the Ducks this week. And then obviously Penn State has a big road game against USC that, even though USC just got upset, still a game that Penn State is very capable of losing there. This is just quite simply the most unpredictable college football playoff, or this, well, yes, this is going to be the most unpredictable college football playoff field ever, but it just feels like maybe since 2007, this is going to be the most unpredictable season ever. I mean, you take a look at a lot of the games that are on slate next week. I mean, Ohio State, Oregon, that's a top 3 matchup now with the new AP poll. That's going to be a dandy. The Red River rivalry, the first in the SEC, that's going to be an absolute classic. You do have Ole Miss and LSU going on this week. That's going to be a very big game with a lot of just sort of consequences and things going on there in the world of the SEC. But you want to look at some other upset potential games. I mean, I listed one of them there just a little bit ago, and it was the fact that Penn State has got to go on the road and play USC. Penn State's a top 5 team right now. USC, if they play a lot better than they did this past week, are absolutely more than capable of beating Penn State. I mean, you want to look at some other ones. A lot of ranked teams are playing at home this week, but what if Tennessee has another letdown performance? Now, I don't think Florida is as good as Arkansas for the most part, but Florida is coming off a big win against UCF, in which a lot of people, including myself, thought they were going to lose that game. They went and, for all intents and purposes, dominated the UCF Knights up until the late stages in that game. Iowa State, they're looking like one of the best, if not the best contender in the Big 12 right now. They got to go on the road to play the West Virginia Mountaineers, who just went into Stillwater and dominated the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Kansas State, they've got to go on the road and play Colorado. That's another one of the more bona fide Big 12 contenders that we have right now. And I mean, just a couple other teams at home. I know Arizona has looked up and down this year. They got to go on the road to play BYU. Don't discount the Wildcats in that game. That could be a potential upset game. If Cal plays like they did against Miami this past week, they can go on the road and beat an undefeated, now ranked Pitt team. And you just look at some of the other points of chaos this week. There probably won't be as much chaos this upcoming week as there will be this past week. But then you even look ahead here to what some of the other games in October look like. Week 8, not even next week, the week after next week, Georgia, Texas. Miami goes on the road to play Louisville. If Miami continues to look shaky and come up with these close losses, Louisville's going to take advantage of that. Bama and Tennessee is that same weekend. Notre Dame has to go on the road to play Georgia Tech. LSU is on the road in Fayetteville to play the Arkansas Razorbacks. Nebraska has got to go on the road to play Indiana. Indiana, as of right now, has got over a 50% chance to make the college football playoff. Nebraska is a real team that can go in there and be able to pull off that win. Michigan and Illinois is that week. I'm going to steal a line from one of the other content creators, and not necessarily steal a line, but steal a takeaway that he has had, and I guess steal is the wrong word. I think I'm just going to sort of agree with him in this sense, but it is that of SG1 Sports, and he has come out there and said, even in the weekly takeaway video he put out just earlier on today, any Power 4 team can beat any Power 4 team. He had that takeaway a couple weeks ago, and in the back of the mind, he even said this in today's video, just like, well, maybe not Vandy beating Bama. We just saw Vandy beat Bama. No one is safe. no one should feel safe. No one is safe and no one should feel safe. This is truly one of the more chaotic college football seasons we have had in recent memory, and it is absolutely living up to the hype coming into this season. The 12-team playoff, crapshoot. Pick whoever you want at this point. It wouldn't surprise me if BYU made the playoff. It wouldn't surprise me if Indiana made the playoff. It wouldn't surprise me if a team that is unranked right now, like Michigan's at 24, like a USC, or maybe even if Arkansas gets, like, it just simply wouldn't surprise me if a team that is sitting unranked right now goes into December and January and they are in the college, or goes into November and December and they are in college football playoff conversation. And what about this G5 race? It continues to just get more and more spicy. Boise State is there. You got a lot of teams in the American Athletic Conference that absolutely can compete, such as Navy and Army. Both of them are sitting at 5-0 right now. Who thought that was going to happen? Tulane is still alive. South Florida, I know they're 2-3, but that's a team that can still be alive. They got a big one with Memphis coming up this week. I mean, maybe Washington State is still realistically alive in this conversation here as well. There's just so much that can happen. There really truly is. There's so much that can happen. There is so much football left to be played. It is going to be absolutely fascinating to see what happens the rest of the way this college football season. I cannot wait. I don't think you guys can either. Oh man, this is just truly look, predicting games from this point on is going to be really, really hard, because if, again, the chaos that we just saw this past week, it's probably going to continue into the rest of this college football season and beyond some. We might even get chaos in the eventual college football playoff. Ohio State and Texas, I think, look like the best two teams right now. But, I mean, again, Oregon, Penn State, they're still sitting undefeated. Miami continues to find ways to win. The SEC, outside of Texas, has got a ton of one-loss teams that are going to be able to make a really impressive run and probably be able to push themselves further up in the college football playoff conversation. And there's just going to be so much chaos that happens over the next couple of weeks, that happens for the rest of this month, that happens for the rest of this season. I can't wait. I absolutely can't wait. I love October college football, and you should too. It's chaotic, it's hard to predict, and that's exactly why we love this sport. So, all right, I'm done taking up time for your day. Hey, Top 25 will be out tomorrow, and we'll start some game-by-game preview and predictions there on Tuesday. So, hey, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow when I release my Top 25. Goodbye.